Welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is Janice Carney. Janice is an attorney with her own law practice, Carney Elder Law in Saratoga, California. She's also the founder of a second company, the Ease Plan, which provides care management for seniors and others who need a professional patient advocate or care coordinator. She received her JD degree from the University of Santa Clara Law School in 1990. Janice has been practicing law independently for over 24 years. She has been a certified specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law by the State Bar of California Board of Legal Specialization since 1995. In 2005, Janice became the first certified elder law attorney in Santa Clara County through the National Association of Elder Law Attorneys, and became only the 8th attorney in California to be recognized as a specialist in elder law by the State Bar of California Board of Legal Specialization. In 2009, Janice became one of the first accredited attorneys by the Veterans Administration in this area. Janice, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Okay. So we've been doing a series of shows related to senior estate planning and care issues. And today we're going to be talking about paying for long-term care for seniors in California. So I'm going to caution our viewers because since we post these on the internet, some of them are going to be outside of California. Janice is a California attorney. I am a California CPA. Some of the things are going to be kind of similar in the state that you may be in. Other things are going to be different. The issues are going to probably apply, but how some of the rules apply in your particular area, particularly related to Medicaid, are likely to be different. So this is just an introduction with some highlights related to this area, and so we want you to get professional advice with your own elder law attorney, estate planning attorney, care manager, and so forth, getting a little team together to help out. All right, Janice, so in the last program that we did, the last interview, you talked about the challenges of getting quality care for seniors, and that the care costs can be like $40,000 to $100,000 a year. How do seniors pay for that care?
You're right. It's a huge amount of money. It's probably the biggest expense that senior will on a particular item will have the entire life. Even their homes, when they bought them back when, were a whole lot less. And so it's hard for most seniors to fathom spending the kind of money that is going to be needed to pay for care in today's economic market. But there are actually 8 different ways that I've identified that you might be paying for care. Of course, privately paying is always going to be a piece of that. How much of it can you afford to pay out of your income, out of your existing savings? Are you going, another piece that's related to that is, do you have assets or investments that you can liquidate to pay for care? So you might be needing to think about, okay, what of my assets should I plan to liquidate first, so that I can plan for paying for my own care. Reverse mortgages are out there, and that might be a way to tap on the equity in your home to pay for care. So mostly the reverse mortgage is going to be used for your care at home. Right. But there are situations that we've had reverse mortgages used for care for one spouse who was outside of the home.
I see.
Long-term care insurance. So, of course, the insurance industry has tried to get us to buy long-term care insurance, and the government wants us to buy long-term care insurance because they don't trust that we're actually saving for our long-term care. So there's been a lot of action by the legislature over the years to make long-term care insurance more appealing. the partner long-term care insurance policies came in long ago, and now there's some more legislation that makes long-term care insurance offered in a different way. Also, being lost my words, being promoted by the government.
I see.
Then, of course, we have Medicare. Medicare is going to pay a little bit of what some people think of as long-term care. We can go over that. Medi-Cal, which is California's version of Medicaid, Medicaid being the federal program. Medi-Cal is available for some long-term care. VA benefits, specifically the VA pension with aid in attendance, is available to seniors who were veterans in a wartime setting, or the surviving spouse of a veteran who has passed away. So it has to be a surviving spouse, has to be a spouse who was someone who was married to the veteran when the veteran died. Can't be a former spouse and the veteran's now dead. That's not a surviving spouse. You had to be married at the time of the veteran's death. And you might be able to get some assistance through the VA. And then there's also life insurance conversions, taking an existing life insurance policy and converting it into some coverage that will pay for long-term care. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking at.
So what sorts of things does Medicare cover?
Okay, I mentioned that. So Medicare specifically, when we talk about long-term care, most people are thinking of a nursing home. Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care, which we sort of define as custodial care, but it pays for rehab in a nursing home. So if someone has, for instance, fallen and broken their hip, they went to the hospital, they had an operation, and now they need therapy to get strong enough to be able to walk again. So they need to go to a nursing home for rehab. Medicare will pay for that rehab up to 100 days. Now they only pay 100% of it for up to 20 days, and after that there's a co-payment. But if the senior has a supplemental Medicare insurance called Medigap sometimes, that will usually cover the co-payment for the rest of the 100 days. But the 100 days is not guaranteed. Medicare could stop the coverage at any point during that 100 days. The trick is that you have to need therapy in order to, you either are recovering, getting better, improving because of the therapy, or you need the therapy to maintain your level of functioning. A lot of people in the senior years, especially if they have dementia, might go to the nursing home and they won't participate in therapy. It hurts and it's hard and they may not do it. And Medicare is going to stop paying very quickly in those kinds of situations. Oftentimes you get to where you plateau and the therapists are saying they're not improving anymore. They don't need it to get any better, and so you sort of top out on your level of improvement, and so that's going to stop. Usually you get a notice on a couple of days, maybe 4 or 5 days if you're lucky, that Medicare is going to stop coverage. Interestingly, we have Medicare stop on Fridays a lot, but it's sort of logical. The therapists are there during the week, and you finish out the week, but they tell you at the end of the week you're not going to have any more therapy, and therefore Medicare is going to stop, and therefore you should go home.
Oh boy.
Because that's what the nursing home thinks. And
yes.
Of course, if you're not capable of going home, what do?
Yeah.
And can you stay in the nursing home? Yes, but Medicare is not going to cover anymore.
Yeah.
The other thing that Medicare covers is hospice. And so while this isn't long-term care specifically, it may help support that person who is in the last year or so of life. And I want to make sure that people understand, while the criteria is that your doctor has to say that you're likely to die within 6 months. Well, that doesn't necessarily have to happen. We have had people on hospice for a couple of years.
Right.
But hospice is not going to cover your daily caregivers. It's going to provide assistance to those caregivers. It's going to provide a nurse coming in. It may make the difference in you being able to stay home. It may make the difference in you being able to stay in an assisted living facility, because they are not able to give you the level of care, the assisted living staff. And so the hospice coming in may support that and give you that extra care that's going to be needed for you to be able to stay there for the rest of your life, instead of having to go to a skilled nursing home. So that would be covered by Medicare, but it does not cover what we call custodial care. That's the care after the therapy and before the hospice.
Okay. So another thing that you mentioned was reverse mortgages. So a lot of people have heard negative things about reverse mortgages. Do you recommend them?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Forgive me, those of you out there who are my friends who sell reverse mortgages. I know that you think that they're appropriate for people who are at a younger age. But I think the perfect use for a reverse mortgage is when you've lived on your budget, you're fine, but you don't have enough money to kick it up into that level of the stratosphere almost that's costing, your long-term care is costing you. So if you've maintained at home and now you need caregivers and it looks like you're going to live, maybe you're going to live 5 years. Maybe it's a little longer, maybe it's shorter, but that's the perfect use of the reverse mortgage if you want to stay in the home. Again, we talked in an earlier program, should that be the home that you've had for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, or should it be a different home? As long as you own the home, then you could get a reverse mortgage against it. I've also talked to one of my clients who is looking at wanting to move to a different home, and because frankly she can't afford the home she's in. She has a reverse mortgage against it, which she'll tell you don't get reverse mortgages, but she sees the equity getting eaten up in her home for the interest on this mortgage, and she's not getting any more money out of it. And so she's thinking of selling her home, which of course around here, homes probably start at $1 million practically. But so she's wants to sell her home, pay off that reverse mortgage, and then where does she go? She's got tax issues, as you would know, on capital gain on the sale of a residence that is valued at $1 million. And by the way, she only paid $16,000 for this home. Yeah. So how does she walk away with money? Yeah, and so one of the things that the reverse mortgage industry is talking about is that person that's caught in that trap to be able to take some of the money that they clear out of the sale of their prior property and roll it into a new property, and then get a mortgage, but instead of a traditional mortgage for a new property, that's of course simpler and smaller and less expensive, they reverse mortgage it. Yeah. So they don't have to pay, so they can live on that bit of money that they've got out, and it can stretch further. You have to be willing to walk away from that home. Yeah. Because it may get eaten up in the cost of your care, but it may make financial sense. So I do think reverse mortgages have a place. Do not, I tell people, do not get them to go off on trips, to live, above your level of means, because, earlier on, because you're going to get trapped like my client, and with this mortgage against her home, just eating up the equity in it, and not have the resources for when you're older. Yeah.
So before we move on, so actually I am pretty familiar with this area. Reverse mortgages there have been developments that have happened in the last few years. So they're a lot more affordable than they once were. The interest rates are actually more attractive than they once were. In fact, maybe your friend might want to look into a refi.
Yes.
But also the fees. There are very substantial fees for setting these up, but now they can actually be covered by lender credits. So in other words, it's not out of pocket for the borrower. We've done programs also. You can look under past episodes for Financial Insider Weekly. It was either Tom Oviatt or Peter Moss from YMAC Capital. We talked about this issue. So folks, if you want to get some more information, you can look there. You need to find independent mortgage brokers that would offer these, because they're not offered like through Wells Fargo or through Bank of America for this type of a program. Okay. All right. Well, do you have to bankrupt yourself to qualify for Medi-Cal or VA aid or?
Well, this can be a whole program. And matter of fact,
Yeah.
in the past we did a program on Medi-Cal and one on VA. But in essence, those programs both require you to have limited assets and limited in, well, Medi-Cal doesn't require your income to be limited, but they require you to pay your income towards the cost of your care before Medi-Cal pays the basics. So yes, you have to be poor. In California, which is we're the last, I think, holdout state, we have never adopted the federal rules for Medicaid, which is the federal program. You have to, in California, you have to pass statutes and you have to pass regulations. And in fact, we've got statutes that say that the rules are pretty much the rules that are the federal rules, but our regulations have never been passed to allow the Department of Healthcare Services to actually implement those statutes. So we're using very old law in California. Matter of fact, the law that we use isn't even on the books, but it has been used since 1988, between 1988 and 1990. And it was passed in 1988 by the federal government, and it was implemented informally into 1990 in California. It was supposed to be temporary rules. We're still using them.
Wow.
Now,
Not so temporary,
35 years later. So that is why people have a hard time figuring out what the rules are in California for Medi-Cal. It's a long-winded explanation that we have the ability in California still to gift away our assets and qualify for Medi-Cal easier than people in other states can do. But I warn people that I believe those federal rules are going to come to California. The Department of Health Care Services is working on the regulations. They've gotten sidetracked because of Obamacare and implementing that, but eventually they're going to come back to it. I also think that because of the number of seniors, the boomers, and the number of seniors are going to double in the next 20, 30 years, that the government is not going to be able to afford even the level of coverage that they give now under the Medi-Cal program. So, so I think that it's going to be harder and harder, and California is going to have to implement those federal rules. But I do want to point out that the VA and the VA rules could be changing as well. In my former program that we did a while back, there was I emphasized that you could give away assets under the VA program. There is pending legislation in Washington to make the VA rules more like the federal Medicaid rules. So that may be winding out of our ability, and so you really will have to be pretty poor in order to get those.
Okay. So anyway, folks need to get information about that. Maybe now is the time to be doing some planning related to that, because we have these rule changes that are coming. And so take advantage of the rules that are in place right now the best that you can. Okay, so time is going here. What about long-term care insurance? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
This is really an exciting area for me, because I want young seniors to start planning ahead for their care, so they don't have to depend on Medi-Cal, VA benefits, and all that might not be very much help to them. Long-term care insurance, the traditional insurance, is not very palatable to most people because of the cost of it and the fact that if you don't use it, you lose it. Mm-hmm. So though you know, you pray that your house isn't going to burn down either, and you have to buy fire insurance, and
right.
You want fire insurance and collision insurance and all those on your car. But this kind of insurance, people have had a much harder time accepting that. Maybe it's because it's very expensive. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes people put off buying it until they get to an older age, 70, you know.
Yeah.
And at 70 you might not be able to afford it.
Yeah.
Because the older you get, it's sort of like life insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
The older you are, the more you might not even be able to qualify for it health-wise.
Uh-huh.
So this kind of insurance, I think, is going to be phased out. Many of the insurance companies that offered long-term care in the past in California have gone out of that business. They found that people are living longer and the costs of care are much higher than they expected, and so it's gone. There are policies or programs out there, such as the teachers, which they could buy a long-term care insurance when they were still teaching, and it was supposed to last for their lifetime. It'd be lifetime coverage, and that it was going to cover all of the costs. That's come back. They've given notices. You can't have that policy anymore unless you're going to be willing to pay like triple the premiums for it. That they're offered 7-year policies or 10-year policies, different kinds of policies. So that industry is changing, and there is no guarantee in most of them that you're not going to have a change in that they're going to drop you, and they can't just drop you, they have to drop the whole program. Uh-huh. But that you might not lose your insurance.
You might lose your insurance.
You might lose your insurance.
Yeah, that's kind of discouraging. You're paying to have this covered, and then it goes away, and especially after you sink, you know, so much money into it. That's very frustrating.
So that's what's happening on that traditional long-term care insurance. Mm-hmm. There were and there still are something that's called a partnership program out there, or long-term care insurance, whereas if the money that you pay into it or the money that it pays out you'll be able to offset that amount of assets once the insurance runs out. If you go on Medi-Cal, mm-hmm. the amount of coverage you got from the insurance, you're going to be able to protect that amount of assets. Mm-hmm. You won't have to spend them down. Oh. In other words, if that insurance policy is paid, let's say $200,000 over the last 3 years for you, or $300,000, then you're going to be able to keep $200,000 or $300,000, an equal amount of assets, and go on Medi-Cal. Those are a good option, but they're a little bit more expensive, and you have to get into those. Again, most people don't go and buy the traditional long-term care insurance because it's not looked at as a good investment.
Okay. We only have a couple minutes left, believe it or not, but maybe you can just throw out a highlight related to this life insurance conversion option.
Well, the life insurance conversion, if you've got existing life insurance that's worth at least a death benefit of at least $50,000, and you need care, assistance with the activities of daily living, you can convert your life insurance into assets to be used for your care. There's a company out there called Life Care Funding Company, and that would be the kind of company you want to talk to. You also want to talk to someone about the new long-term care insurance options that are out there that are a product of the Pension Protection Act of 2006 that make it tax-wise available for you to buy an annuity or put a rider on for long-term care on an annuity or a life insurance, and that the proceeds from those can be converted, pay for your long-term care policy, and those are guaranteed policies to stay there, and the premiums are guaranteed. So I think that these are the way that people need to look at to provide long-term care for their future.
So some new alternatives, and you need to consult with an insurance person that's familiar with that.
Yes, and there are too many of them out there, so
Okay.
you might want to talk to your elder law attorney.
Okay. Janice, thank you so much for joining me as my guest
welcome.
and sharing with us some of your insights related to this area. As we can see, it's a big one. So folks, we want to encourage you again to see your own elder law attorney, your own estate planning attorney, your own care manager that can help out with this and help you in this process, help your family in this process. We'll see you next time on Financial Insider Weekly.